Hello, welcome to Voices from the Middle. Debbie and I are thrilled to have you here. But before we address education specifically, I wanted to go on a tad bit of a rant about the town halls. Now, the town halls have been, I believe, a very good thing. It has allowed Republicans, Democrats, and independents to get out and be able to talk, in some cases, yell at their leaders. The problem, of course, has been that Republicans predictably pull the dumb card. This is the way it has always been, which we all know is a lie, or this is the way the president wants it, and the president has all legal authority to do, everything. Something which I don't think any of us agree with. But the town halls proved uh, interesting to me because I began to see a similarity in both sides, because the Republicans would come on and do their little song and dance in which they completely ignored everything their constituents were saying, everything. But then there was a Democrat that I watch. I didn't know this man. He is for the East Coast, but I was offended the minute he started talking, because you could tell he'd never lived anywhere but the Northeast, right? And when a constituent asked him if he would agree to never vote another increase to Congress, until they had things going right, the man barely let the man finish speaking before he said, "No, I won't agree to that." And I immediately thought of, read the room, dude, read the room. These people are not a little angry with you. They're angry a lot. And you're now telling them that you think you deserve a raise, or that any of you do? No, not good, not good. And then we had a few of them that actually got violent and tased constituents, and they carried one woman from the room, which I thought was, we were in a foreign country all of a sudden. So watch these home uh, town halls. Thank you, Debbie. These town halls, because you're going to learn an awful lot about your fellow citizens. And where before I didn't understand people who had voted for Trump either time, I'm starting to understand a lot better both my Democrats, my independents, and Republicans. The system is broken, but it's the system across the board. And I think people just got desperate, praying that something would be different if they just changed who was in office. Of course, they've found out that different is not better. So that's my rant for today, and I'm going to turn it over to Debbie.
Today, we have two guests with us to discuss education. One is my good friend, Deborah Cannon, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, and then Dawn is going to introduce our second guest, Taylor Johnson. So Deborah Cannon holds master's degrees in mathematics and educational leadership. Deborah has over 35 years of high school teaching experience, including teaching foundation and advanced levels high school and college mathematics and physics. She also served as academic decathlon coach and the dean of instruction for South Grand Prairie High School, which is the high school my children went to. At South Grand Prairie High, she and her administrative colleagues received national and international acclaim for a school-wide career academy approach to smaller learning communities. She is currently the Curriculum Support and Quality Assurance Manager for American College of Education. The principles she values most in all education endeavors are diverse perspectives, data-informed decisions, and the application of learning to real life. Welcome, Deborah.
Okay, Taylor Johnson is a certified secondary teacher living in Alva, Oklahoma. but she left the classroom due to the current political climate in Oklahoma's education system. She currently works as a social worker, with Oklahoma's Medicaid population, serving adolescents in their transition to adulthood. Taylor served as the vice president of Oklahoma Aspiring Educators Association during the teacher walkouts of 2018 and was an active member of the Oklahoma Education Association during her time in the classroom. She is passionate about ensuring Oklahoma's youth are served well both inside the classroom and out. On a personal note, she was the best debater I ever had in class. Welcome, Taylor.
Thank you.
I'm going to start us out by giving a little bit of history of the importance of education to our founding fathers. It kind of leads us to understand why it was there and what's happening now is so damaging to it. I found this article on the website usconstitution.net. The name of the article is Founding Fathers on Education by Eleanor Stratton. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to give you some highlights. If you're interested, you can find this on the internet. Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and George Washington laid the groundwork for an educational system that would support the principles of liberty and republicanism through their writings, legislative efforts, and advocacy. They understood that education was fundamental to the survival and prosperity of the new republic, fostering informed citizens capable of self-governance. Thomas Jefferson maintained that an educated populace was essential for the preservation of liberty. He believed that the key to preserving liberty rested on the good sense of a well-informed citizenry. Jefferson's vision for public education was about fostering informed citizens capable of self-governance. He saw this as a bulwark against tyranny and essential for the republic's longevity. The Northwest Ordinance of 1787 was for the state of Virginia and crafted partly by Thomas Jefferson. The ordinance mandated that every township was to have a portion of its land reserved for the maintenance of public schools. This revolutionary step embedded the means to educate the populace directly into the framework of territorial administration, ensuring that public education would be financially supported. The ordinance education provisions anticipated a future where American experiment in self-governance could be perpetuated through a well-educated electorate. It demonstrated a practical application of Jefferson's ideal in policy, seeking to diffuse knowledge broadly and to cultivate a citizenry capable of critical thought and moral action. John Adams contributed to the Massachusetts Constitution in 1780, explicitly placed education at the heart of its government framework. For Adams, the necessity of education was unmistakable in preserving the rights and liberties of the populace. Adams believed the education was integral to the moral and civic fiber of the state. Educated citizens would be better equipped to understand their rights and responsibilities, thereby preserving the republic. He advocated for a system where every rank in society, down to the lowest and the poorest, would have access to education. George Washington recognized the vital role of education in maintaining the stability and coherence of the new republic. His advocacy for the establishment of a national university was a strategic initiative aimed at unifying the nation and embedding common civic values within its citizenry. Washington envisaged an institution that would teach not just academic subjects, but also the principles of civic virtue and public morality. This comprehensive education would cultivate informed citizens who were capable of critical thinking and who embodied the ethical standards necessary for self-governance. The Founding Fathers' collective vision of education in a republic reflects their profound understanding of its essential role in ensuring the sustainability and robustness of the new nation. They were actually aware that an ignorant population could be easily manipulated, and the education was the bulwark against tyranny and mob rule. John Adams articulated the state's duty to provide education as a means of preserving rights and liberties. George Washington's advocacy for a national university highlighted his strategic vision for unifying the nation through education. Their philosophical and practical contributions established a legacy that underscored the intrinsic link between education and self-governance. This nexus informed subsequent educational reforms and policies, ensuring that public education remained a cornerstone of American democracy. Their dedication to creating an informed and virtuous citizenry remains a cornerstone of the American democracy, ensuring that the principles enshrined in the Constitution endure through generations. I think that it's obvious that what is happening now with the Trump administration and in many of the states, that is no longer the goal of education. They are not interested in students learning critical thinking. In fact, years ago when my kids were in school, Texas actually tried to pass a law that critical thinking would not be taught in any of their schools. So with the way that our current administration is dealing with education, I think we're losing what our founding fathers wanted us to have. Dawn, did you have something on education?
No, I was waiting. I didn't know. In Oklahoma, which is kind of what we're focused on here, there are so many valid reasons for educators abandoning the classroom today, as Taylor did. By the time I retired, we were facing some of the worst circumstances I had seen since I entered teaching in the 90s. I taught at a university, and very few students were choosing education, and 2 in 5 educators were leaving the profession within the first 5 years. Teachers faced soul-crushing disrespect from parents and administrators alike, and in some districts from students. Students can be a part of the problem in some districts, but not all of it. The drain of teaching to spend more time testing is frustrating. I don't know of a single teacher who believes that the testing generations were prepared to enter the workforce. Everyone likes to tell us how to do our jobs better. Hey, has anybody ever walked into the doctor's office and told their doctor what they're screwing up and how they should do it differently? No, but everybody thinks they can do better than us. And the real irony is when parents who have screwed up for the last 13 years then come in and try to ask their middle schoolers, teachers, how do we fix this? Where were you the last so many years? Because I see your kid 1 hour a day. I can't fix what you broke. For many of us, by the time their students are in our classroom once a day, we can't fix any parenting problems. That's beyond our niche. We're already asked to be a teacher, a counselor, a nurse, a psychiatrist, a parent, and some cases, a grandparent for these students who have none of those things through no fault of our own. No good teacher wants a bad teacher to stick around. But we, as good teachers, had to watch the unions not protect good teachers alone, but bad teachers as well. That's a flaw of our system that needs to be fixed. What do you Taylor, see as the biggest challenge facing education today in Oklahoma?
I mean, as far as challenges in Oklahoma, I think one of the biggest ones is a lack of respect, not just from parents, but from our legislators, and it trickles down. It trickles down because you know we have a very right wing population. It's slowly moving blue, but we're still very, very red here. And when parents vote for these politicians for, based on other uh, issues, abortion, healthcare, things like that, they're voting on these big hot button issues. They start to, I think, form kind of a psychological bond with these legislators, and anything they say goes. So people uh, when our legislators just sit there and they badmouth education and talk about how we're indoctrinating children and all of the horrible things we're doing in classrooms, and oh my gosh, we're putting porn in our libraries. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Parents soak that in and they take it to heart. And um, you know, here in Alva, I had some great parents, and the parents that are engaged in the school, they're the ones that know. They can sniff out the lie because they're in the school, they see what's going on, they know the good that our teachers are doing. But it's a lot of parents who are the loudest that aren't involved.
Yep.
And I think
I
it
couldn't tell
creates,
you what's going on, right?
yes, I think it creates this tension between our schools and all of our stakeholders.
Absolutely. Okay. So, Deborah, what do you think?
Deborah, how do you feel our current situation in education is affecting STEM and girls specifically in STEM?
Well, I think it's the issue with girls and women in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math is not new. It's been going on for a long time. In fact, I think that's one area we're actually getting better, but not fast enough, in my opinion. Um, I think that, especially in my age group, it was just very common for girls to want to be teachers because that's what women do, is women teach, and the men, the smarter ones, go out and do the real work. And so becoming a math and physics teacher was a little out of the mode. I even had students tell me that I look like an English teacher, not a math teacher, or not a physics teacher. But I think that the trends are there, but even today, fewer than 40% of the physics teachers in high schools across the United States are women. And, we make up 50% of the population, and actually greater than 50% of the high school teachers. And so less than 40% of the physics teachers are women. I'd like to just share a little story that happened to me once. I did a workshop at the University of Baltimore, a physics workshop. And on the way back to Texas, I happened to be sitting on a plane next to a gentleman, and he said, "Well, I went to your workshop and really enjoyed it." I said, "Great." And he said, "I was surprised I really enjoyed it." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Well, number one, you're female. Number two, you're young." I was young then. Number three, you're attractive. And number four, my God, you're from Texas. And and I think I showed remarkable physical and verbal restraint the rest of the flight, but that was just kind of the thought of a lot of men in physics. I was so fortunate that I guess I have such a passion for the subject that a number of my students have become math teachers and science teachers and engineers and um, professional scientists, professional research scientists, and that just does my heart good, but not enough of them.
Well, and I fought hard at the university against this belief that every child needed to be STEM. And there are a few of us whose brains absolutely refuse. I mean, it's not even I'm being stubborn or anything. My brain looked at math and said, how fast and how far can I run away from this? Right. And I kept telling them, not every child needs this. Some of these kids are going to get degrees and jobs that in a day and age of a computer in everybody's hand, they don't need all of those upper levels of math that they were being forced to take, right? And the last year before I retired, they finally made a change. And the students that were coming in and were non-STEM went through a completely separate math area. And then we had our STEM kids, boys and girls, who went through the STEM. It just made no sense that, especially those of us in the soft arts, that we were going to go into some of these math and science areas that were so much not in the left side of my brain is dead. I determined that a long time ago. So it didn't matter who taught me, it wasn't going to happen. And so I was pleased by that change. So I'm wondering if you guys have like ideas or suggestions for fixing other kinds of difficulties that Oklahoma specifically is facing, such as putting Bibles in our classrooms.
Well, I wouldn't have any problem with them putting Bibles in the classroom as long as they allowed the Torah and other religious texts to be there as well. I just I shudder and I shun closed-mindedness, and I think that we need to model for our children and for our young adults how to be open-minded and respectful of other cultures, of other beliefs, of other perspectives. I catch myself now in this present administration just getting so riled up, and then I have to step back and think about, okay, so why did these people vote for this administration, and try to see things from their perspective. I think a lot of them have gotten things they were not expecting and are not happy with. And some of them have gotten what they expected and are happy with it. But I just try to put myself in the other person's shoes and try to find some common ground.
Taylor, what do you think?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear
I
you.
pressed the button like 4 times. It just wasn't coming off mute.
Oh,
You know, I can definitely agree with Deborah in trying to find that common ground, and that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about teaching. I taught 6th grade geography for a year, and that was one of the things is I got to introduce different perspectives to these kids and from different cultures, and we focused on mostly North and South America in Australia, but it was really important to me, especially talking about Mexico and Latin America, where a lot of our immigrants are coming from. And I had students in my class even. It was important to me to introduce their culture and be respectful and teach kids that, people in Mexico and further south are not the scary boogeyman that Fox News would like to make them out to be.
Yeah.
One thing that I've been watching that really, really has me concerned about education. Florida government appointed a man to the board of one of the universities in Florida who believes that women should not go to college. Then, as part of Project 2025, one of the authors of that, there was a video with him being interviewed and discussing things, and he said that women should not be visible in the public sector. And there's so many levels of how that's wrong. But I think it affects education maybe the most, because more women get college degrees than men, more women get advanced degrees than men, and more Black women get PhDs than anybody else. So it boils down to the rich and the powerful wanting to maintain control and not have to deal with women. And I think it's going to get harder if we don't do something pretty soon for women and girls to advance in their education.
Yeah, our leaders are making every effort, and we need to be clear about this. It is our leaders on the right who have decided somehow that women being allowed to be smart is a threat to them. And somehow they have decided to just shut us up by putting us back in the kitchen and pregnant. But $5,000 isn't going to cut it, because most of these young women are making huge inroads in STEM, are out there making 4 times what I made in my lifetime. They don't need no $5,000 to have a baby. It's not going to work, guys.
And bringing up the economic perspective, throughout my years as a teacher and an administrator, what I saw repeatedly was that by and large, the students who were having difficulty in school, and I for one, am kind of happy with the rise of homeschool, although I realize that some of the homeschool situations are very very close-minded. I'll just say it. But
Yeah.
doing school is kind of an art, and a lot of the students, especially those who were economically disadvantaged, had difficulty doing school just because of the way school is set up, the hours, the demands, especially high school students that had to work to help support the family. And I think that a lot of the racial prejudice has come from, and the prejudice against women has come from minorities and women not having the opportunity, and therefore they have not been seen as successful in certain fields. For instance, I read a wonderful book called Mothers of Invention by Ethel Vale. And she pointed out that many people, especially men, referenced the fact that so few women had patents compared to the number of patents that men had over the sense of history. Well, women were not even allowed to apply for a patent until 1925, I think, somewhere around there. And they were not allowed to piddle with things and try to invent things. Other men in the late 1800s and early 1900s made fun of women who were inventors because of the things that they invented, like the vacuum cleaner and the dishwasher. Well, that's all that they were allowed to do. So, so I think that opportunity is what we need to provide for everybody, regardless of their race, regardless of their economic situation, regardless of their religious bent. Everybody needs an equal opportunity. And I think that that is something that is kind of dwindling in many cases.
This is a good place for us to talk about my biggest concern when I look at the kids that I have had over the course of my career, and I look at what Doge has done to all of the programs that assist kids who are special needs. And it doesn't matter what a particular student's diagnosis is, right? It is the educator's job to step in and determine the needs of that child and address the needs of that child. And invariably, administration and sometimes parents would get in the way of that, as if somehow, because it's a female occupation predominantly, we weren't bright enough to make those decisions for that child. That's wrong. And it's also wrong that there's something broken in these children. I had at least 9 kids on the autism spectrum during my teaching career. And all of the things that he said about children with autism were wrong. This man has no idea what he's talking about. And he should not open his head about children with autism if he has never spent 10 minutes in a room with a kid with autism, because they are most certainly capable of drawing a picture. They go on to lead perfectly successful lives. So what's going to happen now that we have an administration that is saying, well, let's throw out the ones that are broken. We don't need to address them.
And I suspect that a number of people have been around people on the autism spectrum and don't even know it, because
Yes.
because those people are capable of coming up with coping mechanisms and somewhat. I have even wondered if perhaps Elon Musk might be on the autism spectrum, because
I would say he definitely is.
Specialized knowledge, and yet his social skills are
atrocious.
He could use some more practice with his social skills.
Non-existent. Yeah.
To underscore your point, one of the best calculus students I ever had was severely dyslexic, and he had such trouble putting his problem steps on paper. But man, he could explain stuff to me just right off the bat. And RFK talks about how so many people, how autism is going up because of the vaccinations. Well, the autism diagnoses are going up because we're getting better at diagnosing it, which is great, because we can serve those children better.
Oh, but we would never want to admit that it's going up because we're doing the job better. Never admit that.
Well, and not just that, but, previously in the DSM, only males could be diagnosed with autism.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I was growing up, autism was a male-only thing. I was actually recently diagnosed myself. So, there were so many, and I'm just very good at I'm a high masker. And so I found ways to cope and be somewhat better at managing my day. And so for me to hear things like what RFK had to say, that was really frustrating to me. Things like never hold a job, never toilet on your own, things like that. And I'm like, I have a degree. I've worked in 2 different fields as an adult. It's unbelievable.
I'd like him to debate you. I'd pay to watch that.
None of the people that have been put in charge of education at the national level have the expertise to do anything other than slash and burn. Unfortunately, it gives ultra-conservative states the opportunity through their education departments to come up with some pretty silly and harmful things like really pushing Christianity in the classroom, which if they did the same for a lot of religions, that would be okay. It's like a cultural thing. But there is a reason that religion is, well, there's a division of church and state, and it needs to stay that way. And schools need to be educating with facts and studies, and that's it. And if you want to study the Bible as literature, I think that's great. But if you're going to throw it out to every kid that there's no evolution and your own interpretation of whatever the Bible says is stuffed down somebody else's throat, that's not right either. There's so many forms of Christianity that you can't say one way is the best.
Well, and so much of that too, also they're, going after SEL, so our social emotional learning,
Yeah.
our good character traits and things like that. They don't want us to teach kids, good citizenship and all of those things. They call that indoctrination, and it's woke. And so many of those things fall right in line with the Christianity that they say that they are championing. And so it's just mind blowing the mental gymnastics they go through just to try to get Bibles in the schools to instill these values they say they want to instill while stripping away the ones that are pretty universally accepted.
Of course, there you can see they're thinking pretty clearly, because those children, if they're raised with those kinds of ethics and values, then when they go in the voting booth, somebody like Trump is never going to get elected, because their ethics and values are going to tell them this guy is neither ethical nor religious, and I don't want to vote for him. And that's exactly why they're dumbing down our schools.
Just like what I read earlier about the founding fathers, they believed that an educated populace would be less likely to be fooled into taking on a tyrant. And I think we have seen this. I'm not saying everybody who voted for Trump is ignorant, but I think there are a lot of people who are afraid of educated people, afraid that educated people are going to pull the wool over their eyes and do something they don't like, which I find weird.
We use Christianity and God and Jesus as their reason to support what they believe. And I just, we have so many people that are just talk about how important it is to be saved by Jesus. And they're fine that they can have those beliefs. But if they love Jesus so much, I would recommend that they try to emulate his life. I think that would do us a great deal of good.
Yeah, part of the problem is they don't have any idea about his life. They don't know or understand how he walked this earth as a man, as a human being, but with the knowledge that he was a God. Now, just try to walk any planet, with that kind of knowledge on your back, and then think about the world in which he came into. He was the very immigrant these people preached against. They would not let Christ across our boundary into our country. He would be a thief and a rapist.
I think, sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
It happens.
So many denominations are coming out and stepping up and being forward about this. that Christian nationalism is not really about Christianity. It's about nationalistic power that is taking over. So let's get back on the subject of education. Deborah, if there was something that you feel should be changed about education in going on now, what would it be?
To piggyback on something Dawn said was about the STEM versus the non-STEM people. And I recognize that physics and calculus are not for everybody, although physics is the basis of everything, but I won't go there. But one thing that a number of colleges and universities are doing is they are replacing the college algebra requirement with a mathematical models course, which is a great course because it teaches things that are very applicable, like the some statistics on how you shouldn't spend all of your lifetime earnings gambling, and financial models on how investments can do this to you, but loans can do this to you. And so that mathematical models, I think, is a great alternative for the college algebra. And even the college algebra, and in high school, the algebra 1, algebra 2, and geometry, I think, need to be more real world based. I was teaching calculus at the time when the graphing calculators came to be, and there was such a hoopla about, oh, we can't let students use our graphing calculators on calculus. They're such a great tool to teach things. And I don't think that we should take the tools away. We should use them differently, because it's the same thing with AI right now. I think AI is a tool. And yes, there are students that are using AI to cheat. I know that there are. But why is it that they think they need to cheat? Don't they know they have a voice themselves and that they need to develop some skills? There's something we're not teaching them to show them that they need to develop those skills, or to write their own things instead of AI to do it. But I guess the one thing that I would say overall is how we're not getting away from technology, nor should we, is how to leverage technology to make use of the brains we have, not to replace our brains, not to replace workers, but to just retrain us all to make use of the technology that we've developed.
Well, and in fairness to people like me, I'm fascinated by things that I didn't get in school. And I think a portion of that is because my brain wasn't ready for some of the things that they were trying to throw my way, but which now, Debbie will verify that I read about black holes and I'm like, oh, this is so fascinating, and how this all works, and didn't even understood what it was or how it existed. And I'm educating myself, so it's proof that people can be educated, but not everybody's ready to do that at age 16. Just my thing.
Yeah, I didn't take physics or advanced math in high school. I did take algebra and geometry, but I didn't take chemistry or physics. But I have found over most of my adult life being fascinated by physics, astrophysics, and quantum physics, and any documentary I can find or any article I can find, just to get down to the nitty gritty of what this universe and what this world and what we are. And like
I
Dawn,
just
I'm
recently
trying to
read
educate myself. I will never be a physicist,
No,
but I like to know what
No.
I'm discovering.
but I want to go to a lecture and have a clue,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I can educate myself up to a point so that I can go and listen to that really fascinating lecture.
Yeah.
The problem,
And
the problem we're running
question
into,
to
let
you-
me just finish this, is that we don't encourage people to keep thinking after high school or after college. We're supposed to stop thinking then. And this particular administration in particular does not want open thought.
A recent research article by Susan Cohen talks about that maybe the reason some people are not good at math and science has to do with more how they were introduced to things rather than what their genetic brain makeup is. And she talked about how important it was early on to give students engaging experiences, real engaging experiences that show the application to real life. And she even mentioned, if a teacher in elementary school is having her class bake cookies to show properties of matter, she said, "Oh yeah, that's fun, but there is the stereotype that women are the ones that bake cookies. You need to do something that breaks that stereotype to teach about matter." And she talked about how important it is that those experiences happen early in education.
Any last thoughts, Taylor?
Oh man, that was a lot. Now I'm just thinking about the states of matter and teaching cookies. I have a middle level science endorsement too, so I'm thinking about how I can pull in my English degree and the science and the math.
Yep, the geography, get it all in there. Yeah.
Big fan of cross curricular lessons.
Yes. Okay, anybody last thoughts?
Well, I talk a lot, but I want to say one last thing. My dad was my inspiration for education and to be a lifelong learner, because he truly envisioned that and he demonstrated it. And the old saying, live and learn? What he told me was, no, let's turn that around. Learn, then you'll truly be living. As soon as you stop learning, you're not truly living anymore.
That's excellent. Debbie?
What's going to happen to our education system while these people are in charge. And I'm just hoping that good people like Deborah and Taylor and other good educators can withstand this period of time and be able to bring their talents back to the classroom. I know, Taylor, you taught English, and I didn't really enjoy the books I had to read in high school, but I've become a lifelong reader, and without you really even knowing it, you're learning so much about human nature and what is moral and ethical and what is not, all through having fun by reading wonderful books. And I think that's an important part of what you do in teaching English and literature.
That's something I always told my kids. I don't care what you read as long as you're reading. Like, I don't care if it's a comic book. I don't care if it's the back of the cereal box in the morning. Just read something, because the more you read, you are building new pathways in your brain. And it's not so much about the information you're absorbing as it is about making those new pathways. And then you come up to situations in life and what you've learned just by reading is applicable, and it helps you solve problems. And it's just, it's life changing, and you can see the difference.
Yeah.
And across socioeconomic levels, across education levels, whatever, you can look at people and you can tell who is reading and who is not.
Yes, you can. And you can tell it amongst our leaders, our legislators. And you can tell that our president has never cracked a book. So. Okay, probably time to shut me off. I will ask you all to have a really good week, but continue to be active in letting your legislators know everything that is not okay about this administration, about Congress, about what our legislators are not doing.
Yeah.
And get out there to march, get out there to protest, and call them. I called and I wrote emails, and I finally got a call back from Langford's office. Lovely little lady, but she encouraged me to call back and talk to her. And when I called back, it said that line did not take incoming calls. So there you go, people. There's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Have a good week, and we will see you all next month.